Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pays First Wednesday webinar. We're excited to have you here at our 1 o'clock starting time. We ask, as always, that you go ahead and throw your name and organization in the chat for us so we know who is here. We'll let everybody get settled and get in there, and then we will begin here in a few minutes. We're excited today because we're going to talk all about Pays Junior, the fourth grade survey, what that report looks like, and get some great information from Dr. Poplar.
Welcome, everyone. It's nice to see everyone.
Couple things we like to talk about at the beginning every time is, again, if you're just joining us, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. We would like to see your name and your organization, please. We do want you to interact with the presenters today. We do not have any polls, but we do encourage you to ask questions. We'll have our panelists here to monitor the chat, also monitor the Q&A. So please, please, please participate and ask questions. We will have, as this conversation can be a little bit in depth, and you might have some questions that really require an explanation. We're okay with that. We'll get you unmuted at the end after Katie's done, and you can ask those questions. So if you do want to ask a question, just throw that in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get you unmuted and get those questions answered. This webinar, as always, is being recorded, so if that means anything to you, take the necessary action now. Here's our panelists as we go through our first Wednesday webinar, and also we're grateful to have Emma here, and we're also happy to have Jeff Hogan here as well, joining us. They're here as experts that can help answer any questions, as well as our Phyllis, Elise, and myself, and of course, the star of today's show, Dr. Poplar. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it right off to her, and she can share her slides and start discussing the Pays Junior full report. So, Katie?
Thank you. Let me go ahead and get this shared. Can everyone see that? It's in presenter mode this time. Okay, great. So if we have not met, I am Dr. Katie Poplar. I work for a company called Bach Harrison. We coordinate the planning, administration, analysis, and reporting for Pays, and are happy to be doing that for Pays Junior as well. So the purpose of today is to go through just some findings from this year's survey. I'll walk you through how to use the report that hopefully many of you have access to, your district's report. And yeah, we'll hop into some state data. So I wanted to preface with some kind of numbers to orient everyone to the data that we'll be looking at today. In terms of our registration for the Pays Junior this year, we did see 156 opt-ins. We see this from 136 districts, 17 charter schools, and I'm not seeing the number of public schools, 3 non-public schools, excuse me. So we saw really high registration this year that resulted in great participation. So we had 25,525 participants. Those are all fourth grade students. Compared to our pilot in 2023, we do see that we've almost doubled or over doubled those numbers. So we're really excited to see high participation. All of the data that I'll be reviewing today will be from the state. So as I go through, please jot down questions you might have. You'll probably notice if you've already looked at your reports where trends look similar or different. So feel free to jot those questions down, and I'll make sure to save some time at the end to review those with everyone. I wanted to orient everyone to the reports because it's possible you've gotten multiple links so far. So our Pays Junior final reports at the district level went out. That was what you would have received on January 15th or February 15th. All of those should have been sent by February 15th. We also introduced some county and IU reports this year. Those were sent just a couple of days later, either by Elise or Dana. If you have not accessed that report, if you're interested in accessing that report, please reach out to folks in your area, and they may be willing to share that link with you. It'll look almost exactly the same as the district report, obviously just different data, so kind of similar to our profile reports. And then we will be introducing our state level report. This will look just a little bit different from district, county, and IU reports. We're going to include a little bit more contextual information since it is a larger sample. That will be published online in April along with our state profile reports. So we will send out a notification when that goes public, but I just wanted to let you guys know that that is forthcoming in the next couple of months. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hop into the Page Junior report. You'll notice today I'm including screenshots from the report. We will show you an example of what this actually looks like in your Alchemer link. I didn't want to run the risk of Alchemer not actually showing the charts, so I decided to keep things static today, but know that we will show some of the great features that that report includes. You'll notice today I'm just going to go through kind of elements of the report, how you can use it to interpret the data, and then I'll give kind of a sneak peek at some of the trends that we're seeing for the state. So everyone who received a report, this is what the top of your report will look like. It is called whatever your district or county or IU is, 2025 Page Junior 4th grade final data report. You'll see some helpful context or notes to consider before jumping into findings. This is really similar to the preliminary highlights report that you'll see for your county or district. So we include things, this report shares data from the 4th graders, kind of what studies indicate that most young people are truthful. So we have that kind of ensuring that data is accurate and honest. Data are only shown when there's a minimum number of 25 responses. If something's missing, it's probably because there's no data to represent, and then how to actually use it. So things like font size, if you need help, where you can go to ask questions online. And then we do include our list of questions in the report as well. So you'll see that click here is hyperlinked. That shows a data dictionary for anyone who is interested. The nice thing about the 4th grade report, and where this will differ from your preliminary highlights report, is that in the 4th grade final report, we include every question that was administered to 4th grade students. So rather than providing just a subset of data and some kind of high-level summaries, we are including every question in this report. This should be treated as a final report for your district or wherever you're looking at that data. So there are 41 questions in this survey. We start with demographics questions. There are a couple of categories here. We ask age, grade, unsurprisingly, grade is just going to be 4th graders, but we do include that. Race and ethnicity, we ask questions about a student's sex, so male or female, who the student lives with, and then the language that's used at home. And so when we look at the data, this should not surprise anyone. Most students who filled out the survey were 9 years old. We have a couple of 10th graders. This is consistent with the age range that we would see for students who are participating in 4th grade. All of the students who were included in the survey indicated that they are in 4th grade. So this shouldn't be too surprising, but still interesting to see kind of the distribution of age. Something that you won't see here, but we will show at the end of this presentation is the great features that are included in Alchemer. So you can hover over bars and it'll tell you counts and percents. You also have charts that exist below the, tables that exist below the charts. So I'm just including charts here. There will be actual data counts in a table that's listed below each of the graphics as well. So I definitely encourage folks who are interested in looking at actual percentages to take a peek at those. We ask fourth graders, again, like different, simpler questions, but we asked, do you know your race and ethnicity? Kind of unsurprisingly for this age group, again, we're looking at fourth graders, we do see more of a distribution of folks saying that they might not know their race and ethnicity. However, when students indicate that they know their race and ethnicity and share that data, this is comparable to demographics we see at the state. So we see the majority of students in the sample are white, quickly followed by Black or African American, Hispanic, Latino. And then we do see a little bit of a distribution, a higher number of students who indicate that they don't know what the question is asking. When we ask whether or not students are male or female, we see a pretty even distribution. This is standard not only just kind of looking at like demographics of students, but in most research studies, you'll see a pretty even split. It's almost always 51% male and 49% female, which I think this report shows that that's exactly the distribution we saw. So you'll see a really nice even distribution. This is great for things like cross analyses if you're interested in differences between gender groups, where you can start to make those comparisons across students. Sorry, it's not liking my arrows. We also ask students who they live with most of the time. Kind of unsurprisingly, we see that most people live with both of their parents, followed by their parents don't live together. So sometimes they live with one or live with another, or only living with one parent. There are far fewer students who indicate that they are living with foster parents or living with their grandparents, or indicating that they live with someone else. The language that's spoken most often by students in the fourth grade sample is English, quickly followed by Spanish, although that discrepancy is much higher. We do see that most of the students in the sample are English speakers. And then we do give an option to indicate whether or not students speak another language as well. So you'll see that group represented in orange. We ask questions for our fourth graders about protective factors. You'll see that I include family protective factors. We include school protective factors and what we call individual protective factors. For those of you who are a little less familiar with what protective factors are, we ask this of our 6th through 12th graders as well. This is pretty standard in an adolescent health survey. We want to understand what might put kids at risk, but arguably more importantly for prevention work, we want to understand what is bolstering protection for students. So we were lucky enough to retain a lot of these items in our 4th grade survey. Again, they're not asked as many questions as 6th through 12th graders, but we still get to glean some really valuable insight about what is protecting a really young population. So I'll start with family protective factors. You'll notice in your Alchemer report, we have these really nice paragraphs that are listed between any new section of data. So right after demographics, we hop into protective factors. We have this nice blurb about family protective factors. I'm going to read these because they're pretty short and sometimes the context can be helpful. So for family protective factors, building strong supportive family connections is essential to nurturing the emotional, social, and academic well-being of young people. Again, this is true for 4th graders through 12th graders. Parents and caregivers create the foundation for children to feel loved, secured, and valued, shaping their sense of responsibility, belonging, and resilience. When families promote healthy beliefs and set clear expectations, they serve as powerful protective factors against negative outcomes, such as the behaviors that we're monitoring in these surveys. So mental health challenges, substance use, any other problem behaviors. And then we include these really nice sentences at the end. I've loved this just to help me orient to data when I'm looking at these reports, topics that are included. So we look at things like family communication, opportunities for positive family, like involvement, so interacting with your family in a really positive way, and then any monitoring and support that comes from a parent or guardian. So here are a couple of questions. We first ask my parents, we ask the degree that students agree with the sentiment. My parents or caregivers notice when I'm doing a good job and let me know about it. We see that students who perceive that their parents are encouraging them when they're doing a good job, that acts as a great protective or resilience factor. And we're really encouraged to see that most students are saying always. We want to see that the highest kind of endorsement of this type of sentiment. But I would argue even more exciting or as exciting is that we see very few students who say never. So at least sometimes we're seeing most students agree with this sentiment. Similarly, we see this for my parents or caregivers tell me that they're proud of me for something I've done. Again, seeing that parent encouragement is a really positive things in the lives of young students. We see that not only are most students saying always, but almost all students are saying at least sometimes their parents are letting them know that they're proud of them. Even fewer students say that they never enjoy or that they, yeah, never enjoy spending time with parents or caregivers. Again, this is a really great distribution to show that most fourth graders enjoy spending time with the parents or caregivers in their home. They feel like they have opportunities to do fun things with their parents. Again, a great protective factor for young kiddos. Parent and caregiver monitoring. So this is where we kind of shift from how much your parents or caregivers are monitoring the things you do and kind of being available for support for these students. We see that most students reports that their caregivers or parents ask about their schoolwork. And that when they're not home, someone in the home knows where they are. So parents or caregivers know who they are or where they are and who they're with. Which we see as a strong indicator for resilience all the way up to 12th grade. We're going to pivot from family protective factors now to school protective factors. Obviously, these are two really great areas of where students are interacting in their daily life. So for school protective factors, a supportive learning environment, this is usually characterized by a positive school climate, serves as a protective factor to improve academic achievement, engagement, and then beyond that, student mental health and reducing risk for those kind of problem behaviors. School connectedness, or the belief held by students that adults and peers care about their learning, as well as care about them as individuals, is an important protective factor. Research shows that young people who feel connected are less likely to engage in risk behaviors. This includes things like substance use and violence. And students who feel connected to their school are more likely to have better academic achievement. So they're more likely to succeed in the environment that they feel supported in. Something else I wanted to draw attention to, you'll notice throughout the report, not only do we have these kind of prefaces to data that you're consuming, but we also include hyperlinks to resources. This is a great thing that folks here, including Elise and Phyllis, have found really great resources that are provided by the state of Pennsylvania for anyone who might be navigating this. So if you see like a particularly sticky point in one of the charts and you're like, I don't even know where to start with bullying, we have great resources throughout the report where you can click and find the support that you might need, or channels of communication where you can reach someone who might have ideas for how to improve things within your area. Again, we included a question or a sentence, about topics that are included. So topics in this section include commitment to school, school climate, school safety, and we end with bullying. Again, our school protective factors, everything I just mentioned. So we'll start with commitment to school. Factors such as liking school and perceiving schoolwork as interesting or relevant, relevance is a really big one for students, are indicators of commitment to school. So we see our 14th question is, what degree do you agree with this statement? I am interested in the schoolwork that I do at school. We see a little bit of a shift in the distribution where fourth graders are saying sometimes the schoolwork that they do at school feels interesting. However, this is not surprising for fourth graders. This is a younger demographic. If any of you guys have young kiddos, this is not the most surprising thing that we could have seen. So I want to kind of pause a little bit. If you see that distribution start to shift a little bit, no alarm bells should be going off. This is kind of par for the course of what we should see with this age group. We're also really encouraged to see that, again, never is still the least likely to be endorsed by a participant in the study. So even though they might not be like the most excited about school, they're not completely disinterested in what they're going over. We see a little bit of a spike in students saying always for how often they enjoy being in school. Again, we're seeing that most students are at least sometimes enjoying their time at school. We see that this is just kind of the inverse, which should help with data confidence too, that we're seeing kind of the inverse effect when the question is flipped. So when we ask students, how much do you agree with the statement, I do not like being in school? Most students are saying that this is not true for them. So they do enjoy being in school. Again, even if it kind of comes off as apathy, we're seeing that less students are saying that they never don't like being in school. So they enjoy being in school to some degree. Our next section for our school protective factors is school climate and bonding. School climate refers to the quality and character of school life. It's based on patterns that should say patterns of student, parent, and staff experiences and perceptions of school life. A positive school climate can improve attendance, academic achievement, healthy development, and mental well-being. So again, we're seeing the protections for these types of factors is true not only for a student as an academic, but as an individual as well. We do have a great school climate resource hyperlinked in your report, so I definitely encourage folks to check that out. The first question we ask in this section is the degree that you agree with the sentiment that teachers and other grown-ups at school care about me. We see a pretty big spike. So this is really exciting and really encouraging. I don't want this to get lost on people. All of my PhD training is on this exact sentiment. We're seeing really high engagement with adults and non-parent adults or guardians. Anyone that a student should be trusting in their environment. This is being very highly endorsed by fourth graders. And this is a really critical developmental period. So this should be celebrated. I'm hopeful that in your district or in your area, you're seeing similar things. But we see that overwhelmingly students indicate that teachers and other grown-ups always care about them, or they always feel that they care about them. We ask a question, teachers and other grown-ups at school treat students fairly. We see that most students agree with this and that they are being treated with respect themselves. Overwhelmingly, students indicate that they always believe teachers and grown-ups are treating them with respect, which is great. Belonging is something that is a very critical protective factor and something we include for school-specific protection as well. We see that overwhelmingly students indicate that they feel they belong at their school. When students get into arguments, they believe that teachers and adults will help students work it out. So there's, again, reinforcing that feeling of support from teachers and other adults at school. So these are really great indicators that students are feeling protected, encouraged, and supported in a school environment. We also ask about school safety for students. So safety is a specific element of school climate, so kind of different to this general feeling of support and happiness and contentness in a school. We ask really explicitly, do you feel safe when you're at school? This includes things like feeling safe from violence, bullying, harassment, substance use. Students who feel safe at school have decreased odds of things like substance use, suicidal ideation when we're thinking about bullying specifically. We also have hyperlinked a great resource here, so I encourage folks to check that out as well. When we ask students, fourth graders specifically, about whether or not they agree that they feel safe at their school, we see that most students do feel safe at their school. This extends to their kind of commute. So sometimes I can say anecdotally in some reports that I've seen in other states, you'll see that students feel really safe at school, but when they're going to and from their school, that's where safety begins to dip a little bit. We're encouraged to see that students, almost to the exact same degree, do also feel safe on their commute to and from school, which is a great protective factor. And then we ask questions about bullying for fourth graders. I don't really need to go into too much detail about the risk of bullying and why this can be a risk factor, or conversely, if students are not experiencing this, why that can be a great protective factor. But bullying impacts school climate. So everything we've just reviewed, bullying may change answers to questions like this in your feelings of safety. rates of bullying, higher rates of bullying, correlate with things like low attendance, low achievement, and then we see those kind of personal effects as well. So things like self-esteem and depression, or suicidal ideation. We have some great prevention resources that are listed in that hyperlink. I also wanted to just include language that we included before these questions because these are fourth grade students. We want to make sure that they understand the difference between bullying and things like play and teasing, while still being sensitive to the fact that these are young students. We don't want to embellish what bullying is. So we're really specific about the language we used and we included that here. So before answering these questions, students were read, bullying is when a student or students make fun of, exclude, threaten, spread rumors about, hit, shove, or hurt another student on purpose repeatedly. It is not bullying when two students argue or fight with each other or when friends tease each other. So again, we want to make sure that the data we're collecting here is actually it can be comparable to what we're asking of 6th through 12th grade students who might have a firmer grasp on what bullying actually is. So some questions we ask just how often are you bullied at school? We're encouraged to see that the largest group of students here indicate that they've never been bullied at school. And we see kind of a nice curve, downward trend where if they are being bullied, it's just sometimes. Again, we want everyone to say that they've never been bullied, but we see far fewer students indicating that they're always bullied at school. We also ask about cyberbullying. So how often are you bullied on the internet? We see that this distribution looks pretty similar to rates of bullying on school. However, that kind of discrepancy between often and always is a little bit more comparable, but albeit lower than we see for in-person bullying. Okay, and then the last set of protective factors are called individual protective factors. In your PAYS full report, I believe these are called individual peer protective factors. So this indicates kind of protective factors both on an individual level and then how you interact with folks, peers, kind of in your immediate orbit. So individual protective factors are personal strengths, skills, and beliefs that help young people cope with challenges. These include things like problem-solving skills, confidence, sense of purpose. Pro-social engagement is a huge one. Peer and parent support or perceived peer and parent support, and self-reported healthy behavior. Research shows that when young people feel capable and supported, they know that they have these strengths, they feel empowered to use these strengths, they're less likely to engage in risk behaviors. They're also more likely to show resilience. So not only are we seeing a decrease in the likelihood of a risk behavior occurring, but if that risk does occur, we see higher rates of resilience for students who feel empowered in these individual strengths. Topics include persistence and positive view of future self, support from friends, family, and other trusted adults, sleep. Eating breakfast is one that we included that we see as just like a huge protective factor, and this is true across state lines, and then participation in pro-social activities. So when we ask about persistence and positive view of personal future, when youth have persistence despite difficulties or obstacles and have a positive view of their future, then they're motivated, resilient, less likely to engage in risky behaviors. So this one can trip people up sometimes. It's the belief that a student knows that things will be okay. Like they are capable of going through obstacles. They have the tools they need. They have the support they need to feel okay if something is to go awry that might be out of their control. So an example of this is when I get stuck on something I'm working on, like homework, I keep trying until I figure it out. So we know, especially for fourth graders, oh my gosh, I remember that's when we started like fractions and I don't even remember, but it was like a huge math year. And I remember thinking about this constantly, like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be doing this, but I'm persistent. I know I have the support of my teachers. I have the support of people around me. I'm going to keep trying until I figure that out. So this is a really great question to ask students in understanding just kind of a simple behavior, but one that really speaks to their understanding of their personal capabilities. And we see really positive trends here. So most students are saying that when they get stuck, they always keep trying to figure it out. We ask them whether or not they feel positive about their future, a much broader statement that gets at the same thing. And we see, again, a really great distribution where very few students are saying that they never feel positive, and even more students are saying that they always feel positive about their future. We ask about sleep. We all know the importance of sleep. Goes without saying. There are a couple of really important things, especially for young kids. Sleep is vital during this developmental period. So we knew it was really important to continue asking this question for fourth graders. Children age 6 through 12 need 9 to 12 hours of sleep per night. We see that dip a little bit in our 6th through 12th graders, but children who regularly get an adequate amount of sleep have improved attention, behavior, learning, memory. We also know beyond all of the technical, neurological, developmental benefits, they're just less cranky, so it doesn't impact their mood as much. We see a wealth of positive outcomes from students who indicate that they get more sleep. So insufficient sleep, conversely, is linked to adverse outcomes, things like poor performance. We see less physical engagement, so things like obesity might be happening, depression, and then problem behaviors like substance use. The number of students who reported that they fall asleep at school, or that they never fall asleep at school, excuse me, is over 70%. So this is great. It's an indicator that we do see that most students are hopefully getting an adequate amount of sleep to where they're at least not falling asleep at school. Our lowest group, again, is students who say that they always fall asleep at school. I briefly touched on this earlier. In other states, we have similar questions that ask about like the value of family meals or having dinner with a family member for a certain number of days a week. We ask about eating breakfast for our fourth graders. So we know eating a healthy breakfast gives young people energy. It helps them focus and stay engaged. So we see improvements in academic performance. But again, similar to sleep, students are more engaged. They're less cranky. They're well fed. We see a little bit of a change in it's not as clear of like a kind of a downward curve that we see for sleep. However, we are still seeing that most students are always eating breakfast in the morning. Where this discrepancy exists is that our sometimes and always rates kind of flip. So more students are indicating that sometimes they eat breakfast in the morning. Again, we're still really encouraged to see that most students are always eating breakfast before they go to school. And then participation in pro-social activities. If anyone is interested, there are great scales called the Positive Youth Development Scales. That was actually what I studied in my grad training. This is a very, very well-researched, well-informed protective factor for adolescents and children. So we ask the degree that participation in pro-social activities, this includes things like school activities or ways that you can engage in your community, clubs, things like that. So this helps students not only remain connected and engaged in their community, it teaches them soft skills like communication, community support, how to engage with folks around you, and then some more like technical kind of trade skills depending on what they're doing. So this is a great question that we retained in our fourth grade survey. We just asked students, do you participate in after school activities 2 or more times a week? So still retaining some information about the frequency to which students are participating in pro-social activities. We include examples for our fourth graders. So this can include things like sports or dance, clubs at your school. And we're seeing that most students, over 60%, are saying that they do participate often in some form of an after-school activity. So from a developmental perspective, from a positive youth development perspective, this is really encouraging and something that I think gets kind of skimmed over really quickly. But I'm always really fascinated by the degree to which students agree with this statement. And it seems like that most students in Pennsylvania are engaging in clubs or some type of activity. Okay, mental health is our next section. This is an essential part of overall health. This is a target of a lot of like crosstab data. So building correlations between variables and between questions. We always want to understand how our students, especially our fourth graders and younger populations, are feeling mentally. How does their mental health look? Being mentally healthy during childhood means you're reaching developmental and emotional milestones. So when we look at kind of normal formative development, what we would expect, we have these benchmarks, and knowing that a student feels mentally well is going to give us some feeling that they are reaching those milestones. So it's really important that we continue collecting this data for fourth graders. We also see that mentally healthy children have positive quality of life. They feel like they can function at home or in school, and again in their communities. And we do have a link in our mental health data as well. It doesn't look hyperlinked here because I pulled this not from the static report. I pulled it from the interactive, and it doesn't show hyperlink, but there is a material there. As we know, for fourth grade students, we want to be developmentally appropriate in the way that we ask mental health questions. So you'll notice that some of these might look simplified. We ask students whether or not they feel sad. We see that very few students are saying they always feel sad. Few students are saying that they never feel sad. This is what we would expect from this group. So we're seeing that most students, about 65%, are saying, sometimes I feel sad. That's pretty normal, especially as we start to talk about things like social emotional development, learning, anything to do with like kind of understanding emotions during this time. We would expect that students either like they should never not feel sad. They shouldn't always feel sad. So sometimes it's pretty on par with what we would expect. When we ask students if they feel lonely, we see a really interesting distribution that I think also makes sense. We see the sometimes effect. So sometimes I feel lonely, like that happens. We see a large number of students saying that they never feel lonely. This is a really social period in development. So where you see kind of this like dispersion happening in our 6th through 12th graders, where like they're joining clubs, or maybe they don't want to join clubs and they want to go home, or they're not playing at recess anymore because recess isn't a thing as much as I would love for that to be a thing for seniors in high school. Recess isn't a thing anymore. So kind of unsurprisingly, we see a big spike in students saying that they never feel lonely. They're going to be surrounded by peers. There's probably a heightened degree of school and parent support during that time as well. So I just wanted to kind of give some context to that effect that you might be seeing. We also asked fourth graders how often you're feeling worried or nervous. Again, we see the sometimes effect. So sometimes I feel worried, sometimes I feel nervous. This is pretty on par for what you would expect from a fourth grade student. And then our last section is screen time and social media use. We decided to retain these items for fourth graders because younger and younger students are using technology, and they're using it to a very high degree. So social media and screen time, I think this is kind of similar to the sleep effect. I probably don't need to go into it too much, but we know that that influences development. So it influences how young people, especially young kiddos, feel, how they learn, and how they connect with others. When it's used thoughtfully, this is a great place for learning and engagement. It's a great place for creativity, things like games or like creative apps, communication. If you see students communicating via apps or things like Snapchat, if that's done in a healthy way, it can be a really great tool for young kids. However, exposure to negative interactions, or when those interactions are not monitored, we can see that that can increase things like stress. Maybe students are sleeping less because they're using technology more, and it can make it harder to focus in school if a student is kind of like itching for their device or on their device. So, the value of this research and kind of what we want to encourage folks who are looking at this research to do is just encourage healthy screen habits. So, it can be easy. I notice this in other states where people will judge screen time and be like, "Ugh, of course, they're on their screens all the time." But really using this as a tool to say, like, okay, if we know that this is happening in young generations, how can we encourage healthier habits and how can we safely and effectively monitor screen behavior? So this includes things like time limits, positive content, encouraging breaks. I know for me, like I doom scroll so bad. I would love for someone to be in my ear to tell me to take breaks. So just encouraging doing that for younger students helps promote emotional well-being, stronger relationships, healthier relationships with screens, and just better overall health and mental health. So we asked fourth graders, do you have a phone that can go on the internet? An overwhelming percent of them say yes. Almost 60% of fourth graders in Pennsylvania have access to a phone, which is wild. We also ask, since you have that phone, do you have your own social media accounts? Like, what are you doing when you're on that phone? We include examples, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. Those are the three most common platforms for younger students and individuals. And we see that most fourth graders do not have their own social media account. So I know for me, this kind of like startled me like, oh my gosh, so many fourth graders have phones and what are they doing on the phones? We do see that most of them are not on social media, or at least not on their own social media account. So this just gives some additional context to how students might be using these devices. Of students who are going on social media, we ask on a normal day about how much time do you spend on social media. Again, encouraging like even if you don't know exactly, just give us your best guess. Kind of along the trend of folks who don't have social media, we see that they spend no time on it. And then we see this distribution of what I think is a positive distribution. More students are spending less time on devices. So of students who are using social or on social media, I should say, of students who are using a social media platform or have their own social media platform, we see that the majority of them are spending less than 2 hours on that account. Far fewer students are saying that they spend 4 or more hours on their social media account. So again, this is a great place not to kind of like wash your hands of it and be like, they're doing it right, like they're doing it healthily. We do see this trend start to shift the older students get, especially if they start to get their own social media accounts. So this is a great place to kind of foster that type of positive behavior. Hey, I noticed that we have some really great boundaries. How can we encourage those moving forward? Or if we have a conversation about maybe you getting your own social media account, maybe we keep some of these same guardrails in place. On a normal school day, how many hours do you spend playing games on electronic devices? This is kind of a shift from social media to gaming behavior, which is maybe a little more common for fourth graders. I know I was playing Pac-Man all the time when I was this age. So we see that kind of a similar trend to what we see on a normal school day. Fewer students are saying that they never play video games, but we see that the frequency of gaming kind of echoes what we saw for social media use. So if a student is gaming, they're not gaming to 4+ hours or 5 hours, really high rates of gaming or high time periods of gaming. And then these are our last two questions. So on a normal school day, how many hours in total do you use an electronic device, such as a phone, tablet, computer, television for something that is not schoolwork? So it's possible that students are using devices, doing these things for schoolwork. So we kind of pull that out of the equation. Again, we see a similar trend that we've been observing the last couple of questions. Most students are doing that for less than 2 hours if they are. And then finally, this is where we can see some really important kind of actionable data. So how often do your parents or caregivers make you follow rules about screen time? We see that fourth graders look like their habits are fairly healthy. They are restricting their time on these screens. And so a great question we can ask is like, is that your parents that are encouraging that type of behavior? And we see that most students say that their parents do have rules about screen time, parents or caregivers. We see often and never, actually pretty comparable comparable. Almost 20% of students say that they do not have any rules around screen time, but we're really encouraged to see that over 30% of students say that their parents are monitoring their behavior and kind of understanding, creating rules around what engagement looks like, which again can explain some of these behaviors. I realize this is a really long report, so we include some kind of resources at the end. First is a thank you statement, which I just want to echo to everyone here. You being here is huge for students in your area, regardless of the degree to which you feel like you're using this data. The fact that you're aware of it and that you're interested in it and that you're asking questions about it is amazing for students in your area. And it makes us trust that the work we're doing is also valuable to know that people are using it. So thank you all so much for participating, for supporting the work that we do and continuing to show up. Obviously, we always hope that this is useful, but if you need help reading, interpreting, applying data, we do have resources in your area that you can reach out to. We also include an EPIS link where you can submit questions that you might have. I'm going to put my email in the chat. You could always ask me questions. I love answering data questions. So you can always reach out to me as well. And then if you're interested in accessing courses, I know we're going to go over this in another First Wednesday webinar, but we do have this great prevention learning portal resource. I'm sure many of you have heard us talk about this many times. This is a great place to understand some of the context behind data. I know folks can get overwhelmed by the number of reports that they receive and the data points and me talking at you with all these data points. There are great self-paced courses that everyone has access to that help build prevention knowledge and can really inform how you use the data. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, give an opportunity for anyone to hop in, and then please ask questions as they come up as well.
Thank you, Katie.
Mhm.
And I think Lee too, we were, Phyllis was going to share maybe just kind of
Oh,
looking at
yes, thank you,
hovering
Phyllis.
over the reports or, looking at a little bit of the live action feed if you haven't seen them. And I don't know about everybody on this call. I mean, we had like 50 people. If your school district has not participated or you needed some buy-in or something happens, like this, we're hoping to, get some trends like in the actual pays 6 to 12. This was our first year after the pilot. So we really want to inquire with if you need help, if you need support promoting the fourth grade, the pays junior, and getting it in your school. We're all here to be able to help you do that. So we're hoping that this information helps. But I'm going to pass it to Phyllis now, and she can, between her
Can
and
I just
Katie,
add
can
on to
talk
that
a
real
little
quick,
bit.
Elise, sorry,
Yeah.
before we get to Phyllis real quick, I just wanted to say that what Elise is saying is 100% correct. And I have local data for one of the school districts in my county, and I was able to follow along with Katie as she was doing it. She was sharing statewide. I was looking at what that one district, and most of the things are very similar, but there's some things that I'm like, oh, this is better. This could maybe use some help. So there's some opportunity to really like compare these two things. And just to add on to what Elise is saying, like, is if your district or the districts that you're supporting haven't done the fourth grade survey, like there is differences among those small groups. So like it's important to look at that data as well. So like you might not think it's going to be that different from the state, but it's possible that it could be. And that information is going to be important to you when you're making decisions. And I was already thinking in my brain, like the decisions that we could make for this particular school district based on the data. And especially around like social media. And although it doesn't seem like that concerning, even the state level data, there's still some opportunity, and we have programs that can support that. So I feel like we have the programs that can support students being better online citizens and understanding what consequences come with social media and all that. So I just wanted to like throw that in there as a little commercial, but I'll kick it over to you, Phyllis. Sorry for that.
Oh, no, sorry. So let me share again. And I think, one of the things to the point everybody was making as well, utilizing these, even if your school district didn't do it, this is utilizing these reports and showing folks what information can happen will be a great recruiting tool in the future. We really do see this that, we got a lot of room to grow here. This is an amazing rollout for the first time. But I just really want to kind of put that in this as we got a ways before we do it again, do pays again, granted, but just sort of thinking about when you're doing a presentation and thinking about opportunity for engagement and using, these kinds of tools. So what I pulled up here, this is what your report will look like. You will have a link. It will be a private link. You will click on that link and go directly into your report. You can see here, pulled up, this just happened to be where I landed, but this gives you a really good example of, you have a chart as well as a table here, so you can see the exact percentages. If you hover over each of your areas, you can see in parentheses the number of responses that were included there. That's also included here. So again, it's giving you really good point of reference numbers to what, and it's one of the things I really like about this, that you can see, just all of the differences as you're scrolling down, looking at all the different contexts. It gives you a lot of information. One of the things you can also do, I want to give everybody just a reminder, if you see these three little lines in your right hand corner here, that if you click on that, you can download this particular image for a presentation, or if you want to pull this up, or put it into a report, whatever. You can get a PNG, a JPEG, you can get a SVG image. Can't say that very well. You can also shoot this to full screen if you would like to, if that makes it easier. I find this pretty easy to see, even with my old eyes. It seems to be an easy read. But again, this is just a really, I feel like, interactive space. This is the what we were talking about before when Katie was sharing. Here are some words that you can use to talk about what these protective factors mean. This is exactly what she had in her PowerPoint. Again, you'll see these, and then you'll have all of the questions that are under that, just like she presented them. So I think, again, really huge kudos to Bach Harrison and being able to pull this report together. This, for those of you who are familiar, obviously you've seen this before. This is what your preliminary report of all your data looks like. So it's the same platform. But again, I will just put out there too, we would love to hear from you as time goes on. We're looking to make this better. We want to hear back from you. What's working? What's not working? What are some great ideas that maybe we could see if we could do, in the future? So I just want to echo again, everybody else as well. The participation, I will say, I was wrong. I didn't think we'd have as much as we did, and y'all did a great job in the field. Really came on board. You saw the value in it. And to me, this is how we not only keep those of you who participated, but educating those on what the information you can get is how we continue to grow this effort. So please keep us in mind if you have questions. If something comes up, doesn't look quite right, we're all here for you. So thank you for all your input and just support with this today, and as we're growing together with it.
Awesome. And I think that also if there are any SCA administrators that are here, you probably have received the county level report for PACE Junior that it will not be publicly released, but it was shared with those providers, so you were able to access the county level reports. But honestly, any questions surrounding this, we will support as much as we can. I know I've gotten a couple extra inquiries about presentations this summer and about looking at the PACE Junior data and looking at the fourth grade bridge. And also, sorry, I just need to say real briefly, I'm looking for somebody in Halifax County School District and Highlands and Allegheny County. We have our survey developers are looking for focus groups and pilot groups for the sixth grade bridge that I know we have talked about here on this call. And there are a couple people that they were in touch with and then have not been able to follow up with. So if you know anybody in Halifax School District or Highlands in Allegheny County and can email me outside of this call, that would be great. So we can maybe get some movement on that 6th grade bridge pilot and focus group testing. That's all. Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'm just briefly gonna plug, sorry, Lee. Please, like we find it so valuable. Elise and I chat about this all the time. If you guys ever need not even help in understanding the data, but questions about like, I'm noticing this trend and I don't know who to talk to about it or how to navigate that conversation. Like, this feels like a sensitive area and I don't know how to bring it up to folks. Kind of, and this is true for PAYS as well. Please reach out. This is the most delightful part of my job is helping to communicate data in a way that feels actionable to people. So not only if you have questions about how to interpret the data, but how do I use it and who can you connect me with? Elise is one of the most well-connected people I've ever met in my life. Not to put that on you, Elise, sorry, but between her and I and kind of making those connections, we want everyone to feel empowered here. Because that is the point of gathering this data and all of the like boots on the ground that you guys have been doing and getting people engaged and increasing kind of trust and safety around this survey. We want everyone to feel like they can actually use the data that we're sharing. So not only reach out to me with feedback, like I would love to hear feedback about the reports as well, and questions about the data. But if you want to understand like what resources might be available or how to navigate conversations, please reach out. But that's my last plug. Sorry, go ahead, Lee.
No worries. All great information. Thank you for sharing that again, and thanks for all the data. You know, that is super valuable to all of us who are working in the field to know this information exists and to support the people who do it, but also encourage the people who don't and ask them to do it next time we do this, right? So I just wanted to let everybody know before we go that our next First Wednesday webinar is April 1st, and you're going to have 2 April Fools talking most of the day. That's me and Phyllis giving you all information about the PLP and how you can use your data. And that's no joke. So come join us on April 1st. And we'll be talking all about the Prevention Learning Portal, how that data looks like, what that PAYS guide session looks like, a module on the PLP. So please join us for that. We're going to walk you through all of that really great information. So please always like EPIS on Facebook. You can do that there. And if you have any questions, that QR code will take you to where you need to go. And there's also going to be a survey that Elise will send out after this call. So please participate in the survey so we get your feedback and can continue to offer these great webinars monthly. Elise, anything else?
I do not have anything else. Everyone have a great weekend and a great rest of the month of March, and we will see you in April.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.